Good evening. Welcome to a special edition of Cat Space. I am Cat. With me is Buckets and our best mate Leon. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Hi everyone.
Hi. Tonight's edition is all about the election debate, first election debate between Anthony Albanese and Mr. Peter Dutton. Now, we saw the debate yesterday. We saw the questions. I'll throw the first one to you, Leon. Is this Anthony Albanese's election to lose?
Absolutely, it is. He's the prime minister at the moment, and the only person that's going to cost Anthony Albanese the election is probably Anthony himself. Uh, he even though from the forum last night, uh, even though they did say that he won, it really wasn't as convincing as some are putting it. Because neither Anthony Albanese or Peter Dutton got into the 50s. If you really want a convincing win, you need to be above 50, and both of them were below 50. 44, even though that's a win, it's not really a convincing win. Um, it is, like I said, it is Anthony Albanese's to lose if he gets too confident, if he gets ahead of himself. Unfortunately, it's one of those situations where we're in a campaign and he needs to go the same way that he's gone throughout it so far and not get ahead of himself. The thing happened to, I believe it happened to Bill Shorten. He lost the quote unquote unlosable election. If Anthony Albanese is not careful, you know, it could be his to lose.
Hmm. Buckets?
I think Anthony Albanese is going to lose. It's been really tough under Albanese, and remember, I voted him in. I had so much hope for him, but like everything that you never thought that could happen to Australia happened. The country's divided, as we all know, with the referendum. It was the first time in my life where I didn't think it would actually happen in my lifetime. Like we've seen racism before in this country, but I never thought people were just losing friends left, right, and center over the referendum. And that was only within the first 100 days of his term.
Well,
So
I'm glad. Even though I feel sorry for the Indigenous people who did vote, yes and no got up because I do have friends that are Indigenous. And I'm glad we're still friends today. But
that really
uh,
that put a wedge
it
between the
did.
entire country, and I
Eh,
felt that had never happened before. I always thought that being an Australian meant we're all united. We
Mm.
may have
It,
come from places, but we're all united. That's what I thought it was.
it was brought up at the forum last night straight away. Peter Dutton brought that up straight away. The Indigenous Voice to Parliament, which was a disaster. It was a disaster. It was a kick. Quite frankly, it was a kick in the. It was a kick in the. Quite frankly, it was a kick in the balls to Anthony Albanese because um we were in we are in the middle of a cost of living crisis. His idea of dealing with the cost of living crisis, do an Indigenous Voice to Parliament. That was never going to work.
Yeah,
Never going to work.
during the worst period of our time where people were literally struggling to put food on the table. Australia had never seen such high levels of homelessness, and the types of homelessness was changed. It was like people had jobs, but they had no homes. I didn't think I'd ever see that in my lifetime. Before it was just you're homeless, you don't have a job, you're unemployed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this was everyone becoming homeless because they've got a job but they can't afford to pay the rent. We have been screaming at the Albanese government to have a rental freeze, and they've just been ignoring us. Well, at least they've been ignoring us in New South Wales anyway. Some of the other suburbs, other states like Canberra, even though the ACT technically isn't a state, it's a territory. They got a rental freeze. Why is it that people in Canberra get a rental freeze, but people in New South Wales don't? And then the cost of living crisis with Woolworths basically skyrocketing Aussie lamb, Aussie beef. just your basic goods that your grandmother would have fed you when you were a kid, through the roof. You can't tell me that life has been easier under Albanese. My gas bill, electricity bill, you know, went through the roof. It was probably the most expensive electricity bill I've ever had to pay in my life. I didn't think I was blown away when I got my electricity bill. And under Albanese, it was supposed to be cheaper because that's what he said.
Mm.
So I don't know if Albanese will win it. And look, to be honest, listen, I don't like Albanese right now, but I don't like Dutton either right now. And I think they're the leaders of the wrong leaders for the parties that they're with right now. To be perfectly honest, and I wish that Jacinta Price was actually leading the Liberal Party, and Penny Wong was leading the Labor Party, but that's not happening right now.
Is this Anthony Albanese's election to lose? You both have made strong valid points to which I agree to, so I'll keep mine short. Yes, it is. Now, you showed me something very vital before we started, which was Mr. Albanese was cracking at the reporter asking him a very vital, important question. If Albanese wants to keep his prime ministership seat and have majority government, he's got to remain cool, calm, and collected in front of us, the Australian public, in front of the press, in front of people listening to him, watching him, in front of his cabinet. I know it's a stressful time. This is the biggest election in Australian history to date. And it could be very close, but if he wants to lose, keep going the way he is because he gets very angry really quickly. He can't contain it. He can't stay controlled. He can't stay cool, calm, and collected.
It's almost like he feels underappreciated.
Yeah, underappreciated, overworked, exhausted. He's. You both have pointed out the voice to Parliament. I'm gonna, point out the fact that he's He's not, they're both not willing to work with the Greens to make a deal, to cut a deal. And this is a very, very, very dangerous water they're treading. This is not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to make a deal with the Teals or with the Greens to one of them to win. And
Well,
Anthony Albanese, I'm sorry, Leon, Anthony Albanese is continually cracking under the pressure, and this is not a good sign for him.
well, he'll keep his seat. He'll keep his seat at Grangler. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. So if I am not pronouncing it right, then feel free to correct me. But he'll hold on to his seat. He will hold on to his seat. He's got like a because it was about he had a 5% swing to him at the last federal election. So he has like third, I believe he's got somewhere close to like a 30% swing to lose or something along those lines. So he's not gonna lose his seat unless something absolutely catastrophic happens. So
What, what
he'll hold on to his seat.
Of course, ground law, that's his area,
Yeah.
Marriage But what I'm saying is that if he wants to keep the seat of Prime Minister and remain in power, he's got to remain cool, calm, and collected at all times. I, Please don't come for me, viewers, but I see him as unprepared. He's not prepared. He seems kind of aggressive when someone's asking him a question, and he's eagerly snapping. It could be the signs of exhaustion or unpreparedness, or he's just trying trying to fight, and maybe it's just his demeanor. He's not able to, you know, he's not able to respect people's questions because
I think he's more fed up with the questions that keep coming at him. It's the same questions, but just directed at him differently. I think he's starting to become fed up with that. I think that's the deal there with Anthony Albanese.
But isn't it like every other press conference where you're going to get asked the same thing over and over and over
In
again?
different ways, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think he's starting to become frustrated by it because now he wants to be talking about something else, and the media, the press who are traveling with him are now not letting him do that. They want the questions that they want answered. And it's up to him now just to answer those questions. He's going to get hit with as we talked about before we went on air about the Anthony Albanese snapping at a media personnel today regarding potentially doing a deal with the Greens. He's said that he's ruled it out. He said he's ruled it out, and he started snapping. As like, for the fifth, how many times have I said this? Like for the 50th time or something like that. That was a snarky, really aggressive answer towards the media gallery because they're going to ask this another 50 or so times. So he's going to have to get used to that.
Exactly. I just feel that this election seems like who would forgive me for saying this, but this is just off my brain. It's like who wants to be the head boy? Who wants to lead the school? Who's the school captain? Who wants to be the school captain? And they're both fighting for the same school captainship, the school, the head boy pin. It's like, no, I'm going to be the head boy. No, I want to be the head boy. No, no, me, no, me. It's like, this isn't a school. This is parliament. This is taking care of your fellow Aussie. And you're not making it easier on us to make that decision on who to vote for. But there are people out there that have said, I won't vote for either. I'll vote for someone else, but not either.
Well, in that case, you're going to be pissing away your vote because
Well,
either way, it's going to have to go. But either way, the preferences, whoever you vote for, is going to go back to either Labor or Liberals.
Well, the thing is, I'm not so sure about that, right? Because if people can't decide and they much prefer the independents, you might actually find that you'll get a hung parliament. All the independents will basically form one party, and the independents will completely take over, just like has happened in previous elections. So I think, to be perfectly honest, right now you've got people that aren't exactly happy with Albanese because he's been in power and all these shitty things have actually happened under him. But at the same time, they're not quite trusting of Dutton because they think it's going to be under a police state. Yet, who's really popular right now? The Greens are popular, the Teals are popular, One Nation is popular. All of these independent parties that are popping out might actually get the votes. Even Clive Palmer's party actually might get a few votes, which might not necessarily go to the major party. So I think we probably will get a hung parliament, and all of the other independents will just become one big party, like a union, if you will, or a coalition, and then that will become the major party. I honestly believe that's exactly what's going to happen. Because people are just sick of both politicians, to be perfectly honest.
Here's my next question. I've never thought of this question before, but let's run with it. Leon, is Australia losing its political compass?
I think so because generally at a federal election, there would really in the past only been, well, quite frankly, three parties. That would be, so I could say like four technically, like the Labor Party, the Greens, the Liberal Party, and the National Party. Now the National Party has kind of merged with the Liberal Party, so they're now known as the LNP, and it always seems to happen at every election. The Labor Party would have to rely on the Greens to get them over the line. That always seems to be the case. But now you've got, as you mentioned, Phil, obviously we've got like the likes of One Nation. We've got the Trumpy Party, whatever it is that
The Trumpets of Patriots or whatever.
yeah, that's the one by Clive Palmer. That's another one. You've got the Teals, that's three. Who else do we got? The Shooters Fishers Party, that's like four, and it just goes on and on. Pretty soon there's going to be so many parties. It's going to look like a joke. It's going to look like the way that the UK do theirs, and there's going to be like stupid bloody names for parties and stuff like that, and people are going to vote for them because they don't want to vote in the UK. They don't want to vote for the independents or the Tories and stuff like that. In this case, they're not going to want to vote for the Labor Party or the Independent or the Labor Party or the LNP. And it just basically throwing away their votes.
Can I say something about that, right? Um, Basically, I think that's how a democracy should be. The constituency, vote for who they want to represent them. It shouldn't be a rubber stamp of Labor versus Liberal. It should be, I want this person to represent me. What's happened over the years is it's only been Liberal or Labor, Liberal or Labor, Liberal or Labor. And the biggest problem with that is, the same dickhead politicians get voted in, the same corruption happens, the same bullshit policies come in, and some of the country people who often get neglected because they're in the middle of the country and they're not well represented are often forgotten. So that's why people will vote in Jackie Lambie. That's why people will vote in One Nation. That is why people will vote in the Teals. And I think that's part of a healthy democracy. And it might look weird to everyone else in every country in the world, because in America you've got the Democrats versus the Republicans. But like, look how screwed up their politics is right now. Okay, look how screwed up, and that's only because there's two parties. If they had multiple parties representing them, okay, you wouldn't have this rubber stamp crap going on. So I think the more parties that have their say, that have their opinions, that put their represent more people, is actually really healthy, because then they can represent a greater part of Australia instead of neglecting lots of people and letting people fall through the cracks.
Here's where you brought up a very strong point. It's all about democracy. Now, please don't hate me for this comment, but if Anthony Albanese gets in by the skin of his teeth and gets re-elected, what's to say within the next 6 months to a year he decides to have another referendum, but to do with becoming a republic, because we all know Anthony Albanese is a staunch Australian Republican. I know there's a difference between American Republican and Australian. I do know that. But what's to say that if he gets in by the skin of his teeth, that we're not being forced to once again be ripped apart and going, okay, you've got two choices: either choose the monarchy or choose me and the country.
The biggest problem I have with our republic, to be perfectly honest, is that once you do away with the British monarchy, we might have to then deal with an Aboriginal monarchy. So it's like you're exchanging one republic for another, sorry, one monarchy for another. And that will be brought up. So is it a true republic if another tribe or another has decided just to take over? Because that's what nearly happened during the referendum. What's to say that won't happen again?
Like take New Zealand. They had a Labour lady, Jacinda Ardern. Wonderful lady. And now they've got a One Nation guy. Now the Maoris have a new young queen. See, that's for them. But also being run by head of state, which is King Charles III. It's working out fine, but the thing is, in this country, we're supposed to be a multicultural, diverse community, and we're supposed to be celebrating each other. Instead, we're fighting each other. We're hating each other. We don't want to go. We don't want to talk about things. It's just what's to say if he again gets in by the skin of his teeth that this man won't divide us once more.
You brought up an interesting question regarding the monarchy and republic right now. I don't think Anthony Albanese would want to have that right now because he doesn't like King Charles and he also doesn't like Donald Trump. So I don't think he would want that right about now. So I think that's one that he might, as much as he hates both, he's going to have to put that one on the back burner for now.
Fair enough. Here's Leon's question. Very proud of it. Okay, here we go. Are there too many parties with too many vested interests?
I think we did kind of mention that before. Um, I think the answer is no.
I beg to differ.
Well, I mean, we're all Australian. There are people coming into the country, but they're technically not allowed to vote because they are foreigners unless they decide to become Australian
Citizens.
Citizens. But everyone has a right to voice their opinions, no matter what walk of life they actually come from. And I think the greater the opinions, the better. Otherwise, you don't know who you're representing. Who are you helping? And what exactly do you mean by vested interests exactly?
Well, that was Leon's question.
Well, what I go by that is say like the Labor Party when they got in, they wanted to have this Indigenous voice to Parliament straight off the bat, which is one thing that they called for, and it blew up in their faces something bad. Like the Greens are hell bent on net zero. uh what do you call it? Clive Palmer is also hell bent on wanting to get rid of the welcome to country everywhere he goes. And Pauline Hanson's kind of like the same way, especially when it comes to One Nation. So they've all got their own interests there, their own what they want to do, but it's not about what they want to do. It's what Australia wants them to do. So, go on.
Well, the thing is, right, I think there are Australians that, well, this is the way I see it, right? If you want to do a welcome to country, that's great for football, games, or to be respectful or whatever, or even to show as a respect towards people, as it is a sign of respect to other people, and it's great for the tourists as well. But it makes no sense to be welcomed into my own
agree.
country when I'm already part of this country. It's kind of stupid, really, because it makes me feel like I'm a foreigner in my own country, and I'm not. I was born here. I've lived here my whole life, with the exception of,
I wasn't born here. I came here from New Zealand and I became an Aussie citizen with my family. And I'm very proud to be Australian, but I agree with that. I do
Can
agree.
you imagine the hate that would happen? Can you imagine the heat? Say if there was a welcome to country and it got booed, that would be a big problem. Then you would have to stop doing it. You would have to stop doing the welcome to country because it's overstayed its welcome. Because that's what I'm worried about. If that welcome to country happens one time too many and it gets booed, you're gonna have to stop doing it.
well, the thing is, I don't think they should ban it, right?
No, I don't think they should ban it. I don't think they should ban it either. And I was never, to be honest, I never would have considered banning it at all. I think it's up to whatever they want to do with it. But
But if they, I don't want it to become mandatory either.
yeah,
I think it should stay a cultural thing with particular clans or particular tribes of the Indigenous Australians, no matter where they are, because there are around about 280 to 300 tribes all around Australia. There's not just one, and they all have their own welcome to countries, right? So, making it mandatory is a bad idea, but also banning it is also a bad idea as well. So that's how I just think that it should just be kind of I know I'm quoting the castle here. I said just go with the vibe. Just go with the vibe and everything will be fine. It's the vibe.
Good answers. All right. Question 4. Um, were there topics that both parties didn't touch on? I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to say yes. There are a lot of things that were discussed except Centrelink, job seekers, and DSBs, and what can happen for renters.
Oh, didn't you just love the Labor government's extra $3 in Centrelink last month? Wow.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
I didn't see them. I didn't see them touching on that, and I think that would have been costly because of the cost of living and whatnot. They didn't touch on if they are willing to give us a little bit more just so we can, you know, work on standing on our own 2 feet. And Anthony Albanese is saying, oh, unemployment is down. I don't think unemployment is down, but they need to talk about job seeker and DSP and how within their budget should they get reelected or Peter Dutton gets elected in his up and coming budget, you know, what he can do for us on, people like job seekers and DSPs and what they can do to help and rental freezes or, rent for us renters, what they can do to help.
You mentioned the unemployment rate, by the way. At one stage, it was down quite a bit, under Anthony Albanese, but unfortunately, it did early on during Anthony Albanese's tenure as Prime Minister. It's still going on now, by the way, at least until May the 3rd, at least. But it did go down early. His unemployment rate did go down early during his piece. However, it's steadily climbed. However, it has been steadily climbing, and it's been around between I think it was like 4.3 and 4.4%. Unfortunately for Anthony Albanese, it did go up in February. So it has gone up by 0.1. I know that's not much, but that could be that could be a lot of difference between whether or not someone can pay the rent or not.
Exactly.
Well, actually, Kat and I were talking about the rise of the cost of an ice cream at Macca's, actually,
Yeah.
a soft serve cone, and I think it started as like 5 cents.
30 cents or something back
Then
in
it
there.
went to 30 cents. Then it went
Now
to
it's like
80 cents, and now
it's $1.18,
it's
$1.20 for a soft serve.
for a soft serve, right? Which means that $3 increase that we got could really it doesn't even pay for 2 ice creams.
It's like
we're just 20
it's a
cents
dollar-
under getting
it's a-
3 ice creams.
And that $5 tax break that we're going to get if Anthony Albanese is, we're not going to next year. We're not going to see that for another year, and that's why it won't even be enough to buy a Happy Meal from McDonald's. You couldn't buy a Happy Meal with $5 with that $5 tax break that Anthony Albanese promised.
I think the basic standard is if you can't afford Macca's with what the government is giving you, okay, that should be the standard as what not to do in politics, okay? Because your future voters won't vote for you if you're just getting crap, right?
Like, for example, they touched on everything else. And he said, oh, I'm opening, emergency Medicare clinics, which is great. Free TAFE, great. I had to pay for my course $240, right? Just recently refunded to me because now I get disability help for my course. So every course I do is now tuition free. But the thing is it's only free TAFE for tradies who want to learn construction. It's not free for everybody.
It depends what course you're doing. So if what the government want to do is they want to all the jobs which are needed the most, like aged care, for example, trade workers, very useful. Civil engineering, that's another one that's really big. The government wants those jobs because they're in high demand of them, right? So those are the kind of deals which you'll get a free education for, right? But other courses you won't be that lucky, unfortunately.
Like, for example, I just recently read that doctors and nurses are actually walking out on the job because they
Just did
want
a
to
strike
pay.
today, and I believe they're doing I believe tomorrow. I believe might be day 2 or day 3 of this strike action at the moment.
See, there you
They
go.
want a 30% pay. They want a 30% pay increase,
Exactly.
something along those lines.
Right? They didn't touch on that. They didn't touch on job seeker and DSP. They didn't touch on anything to do with rent. They didn't touch on, mental health. They didn't touch on what makes the fabric of Australia.
So
Well, the thing is, the reason why it wasn't touched on is because it wasn't asked. 100 people there did not ask them.
well,
Otherwise, no, it would have been touched on. I have no doubt if somebody had asked them, it would have been touched on for sure. But unfortunately, with the 100 people that they chose for that People's Forum, those kind of topics weren't asked.
but there weren't even 100,000 people there. There were only
No,
100.
100. That's why I said 100.
But I have one question. Did this pass the Macca's test?
No.
And by the way, I was talking about the unemployment rate. When Anthony Albanese took office in May 2022, the unemployment rate was 3.9%. Okay. Now, in October 2022, it was down to 3.4. So that was down by 0.5%. Moved to February 2025. Would you like to know what the unemployment rate is?
Yes, please.
All right. So when the Labor Party took office, it was 3.9%. And as of February 2025, it was at 4.1%. So it's actually gone up. The unemployment rate has gone up technically under the Albanese government. And by the way, I got my source information from tradingeconomics.com. Thank
And
you.
don't come at me for saying this, but he's also kicked out his own tenant from his apartment because he wants to sell his home to make room for his wedding. Fair enough. But in the cost of living, his tenant almost broke down and cried, said, "Where am I going to go? I don't have any, friends. I don't have any family near me. I'm going to be out in the streets. Can you please not kick me out? I need the house. I need a roof over my head." And he said to him, "Look, I gave you 3 months warning to leave and you're refusing to leave. I'm going to kick you out. That's it."
Yeah, but the other
But
thing,
if he gave him warning, then,
he was
it's a
given.
bad situation, but he gave a warning.
Yeah, but that guy is going to be a future voter, and forevermore, he'll never vote for Labor ever again. Okay?
Apparently my family is a family of Labor supporters. You know what happened when the Kevin Rudd, Julia Gillard thing happened?
What?
They said they'll never vote for him again. And that was my uncle who said that.
Wow.
So because he's a Labor supporter, obviously, but um, he was annoyed at the way that went. So he was annoyed to that point. He's become more open with which way he's thinking about going. We're talking 2007 here. His opinions may have changed since then, but that's on him. But that's my uncle.
Fair enough. Last question. Who do you think won this debate?
All right, you know what? I know they say Peter Dutton lost, but Peter Dutton fought like a tiger. Let's be
Blunt here.
perfectly blunt here. Every time Albanese kept lying his ass off, Peter Dutton brought the truth out and said, "You know what? That's bullshit. Okay, this is the truth. This is the facts." And to be perfectly honest, even though he lost, I thought he fought tremendously well, and he basically exposed the truth, which is what we all needed to hear. So I don't think so. Even though that people weren't sure whether they were actually going to vote him or not, he did actually tell the truth.
Hmm.
And that's what we need from our politicians for them to tell the truth. Albanese was lying his little nuts off.
How he won
Constant
on them.
lies. I don't even know how he won that, to be honest. I don't think he won. He must have rigged something because this is.
Oh God, here we go.
I don't believe he personally won that. I thought he lost that, if anything.
Yeah, I have to go with buckets. I truly believe Peter Dutton fought like an MMA fighter. He fought like he punched his way through. He hit, where he's supposed to hit. And he was like a tiger, like an MMA fighter. I'm so proud of him. And you said when we were watching that his dad suffered a heart attack.
It apparently did. Now the report that I got was roughly roughly an hour before this debate was due to take place, and he was only informed. Peter Dutton was only informed about 10 minutes before they went on air or something like that, or something close to that. So it's a wonder. I don't know how Peter Dutton was able to power through that, consider all things considered. The good news is that his dad, I believe, is now in a stable condition, which is good.
Okay.
That's the best news we could have possibly heard.
Because
But as far as the debate goes specifically, I thought, Peter Dutton, that was his best ever performance. I thought he won that debate last night. I think, like I said, that was his strongest performance that he's done. Um, but there was an interesting point that Andrew Clennell pointed out from Sky News, and I sent you guys this shortly after it happened. Right? They Anthony Clennell thought that Peter Dutton had won that debate, but if that was your strongest performance and you lose like that, it doesn't look good. But and quite frankly, it doesn't. So unless either he can there's there's something amiss. I don't know whether or not there's something amiss. I think Peter Dutton may be missing some sort of X factor. I'm not sure what that is.
Could be his
Uh,
charisma.
charisma,
I think it's
maybe.
charisma because look, you look at all right, well let's go with this. Look at Kevin Rudd and
He had
Obama.
the charisma.
He had the charisma. Obama had charisma, right? Donald Trump had charisma, right?
Yeah.
Even to an extent.
Kamala Harris had charisma.
But but
Yeah, that's true.
but a driving force for people wanting to select ministers, a lot of it is charisma.
Scott Morrison had the charisma too, because when he decided, well, what do you remember? Just before they went on that holiday break, after they changed from Malcolm Turnbull to Scott Morrison, he instead of just staying where he was, he went out. He went down to the South Coast, and spoke to the real people out there. So he didn't have to do any of that, but he did, and he found the key. Well, it found the proverbial key to turn it around.
So I think what Dutton's actually missing here, like I think he's a good minister, and I
Oh
think
yeah, no doubt. I've no doubt.
but he's missing charisma, and without that sort of thing that people can believe in, or within that, people aren't going to vote him in because it's like it's not like people are saying he doesn't get me. That's not it. It's like that he needs to build this connection with his constituency, and I don't think he's done that yet. Albanese's done it, and he did it with the whole I grew up in the housing department thing, and I used to live in the western suburbs, and I'm a South supporter, and therefore they're like the downtrodden kind of thing. So he really built it up with that, and people really connected with that as well, because we all know how bad it is in that neck of the woods.
I think the sympathy vote won him that.
Right, but that was his charisma, and that's why everyone backed him to say he's one of us. Until we realized he's not one of us. He's just a bloody accountant. So I think that's what Dutton needs to concentrate more on, which is what is my connection to the people.
Having a personality.
Yeah.
I will say this is, let's not all forget that Mr. Dutton, Peter Dutton, was a young cop in Queensland. He was a police officer. And you could tell yesterday, as hard as he was fighting, as hard as he really took it, I felt bad for him because you could tell he was inside his head, and he was trying to answer the questions. And I feel like maybe he was stuttering a bit because he was nervous.
I think at first, yes, I agree. I think at first he was a bit nervous, and he's sort of just eased his way into it. Anyway, go on.
And then because he used to be a cop, I think that comes into play where he has to be honest in saying what he really means. And people see him as corrupt. People see him as not the type of prime minister for us. But at the end of the day,
I think people just don't want a police state.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he fought and he told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I think he, deep down inside, I do believe he won it. This was Dunn's win. And I'm sorry, but, I don't know how in the world this happened, but
I think
he won it fair and square.
I think the reason why, well, I mean, Leon basically made a really good point yesterday, when he was talking about Paul Murray, the Paul Murray interview, where he basically said, well, Anthony Albanese, won it, but he didn't get over 50%.
Yeah.
And neither did Dutton.
Neither of them did.
And I think the reason for that is because people want to back the independents.
Yeah, and speaking of independents, they're going to come after the independents, the Greens, and Labor. They are all coming after Peter Dutton's seat in Dixon, which, by the way, Peter Dutton does hold with a swing to lose of about maybe 1.5%, 2.5%. So if there's a 2.5% swing in his own seat, he could find himself in big trouble at the election, despite the fact that he held on to it. There was a nearly 4% swing against Peter Dutton in his own seat of the last election. So I don't know whether or not Queensland politics at the moment are going to help Peter Dutton. They may not. So that's why I'll be watching Peter Dutton's seat very carefully. You'll know early on which way the swing is going over there in Queensland, but I do believe the end result is going to come down to New South Wales, because I believe that Queensland at the moment, they've just had a change of government, mind you. In Victoria, the Labor Party is very much on the nose at the moment. They're probably going to get thrown. They're probably going to get thrown out of Victoria at the next state election. So who knows how federal politics are going to work in Victoria? But I don't think Western Australia is going to be much of a deal at the moment. That'll be a Labor win. So it's all going to come down to New South Wales.
Do you know what? Do you want to know that what Peter Dutton's secret weapon is?
Go ahead.
Jacinta Price.
Jacinta Price. Well, I think
Jacinta Price, okay, people will vote in Dutton. But if you ignore her, if you don't give her the media attention that she deserves, okay, I guarantee the Liberal Party have lost.
I would put it if Peter Dutton fails. If Peter Dutton fails at this election, right, and he stands down, I reckon Jacinta should put her hand up. If she puts her hand up, imagine the influx of supporters that will go pouring into that. You'll probably even get One Nation on side with that one.
Yeah,
even the Trumpeters of Patriots, you'll get them on side as well.
Absolutely, because the thing about One Nation, Clive Palmer, and also a few others, what they all had in common was they basically were against the referendum. They're all no voters. So if if they throw Jacinta Price in, or even Warwick Mundine, okay, they will pick up these hidden votes, and I think that'll tip the scale.
The missing votes, yeah.
So, but they need to focus on her, and they need to focus on Warwick Mundine, because if they don't, it might actually be a Labor win. So they really need to remember, okay, how much attention the referendum got, and how many people said no, and why they said no, and if they can remember who actually led that campaign, okay, then they'll get their win.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. Thank you so much to my boys, Buckets and Leon, for joining me. This has been such a educational podcast for me. I have learned so much. Thank you to our subscribers and viewers. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that bell. That allows a lot of our content to come out your way. Please invite your friends to subscribe. Hit that like button. Let us know in the comments below what you think and who you think won this debate, and do you think both of them are the right candidates or not to run the country? Please let us know. We'd be happy to answer. We are also on Spotify for podcasters and Anchor.fm as well if you want to listen to the audio. Until then, thank you so much. We can't wait till the second one to bring you more. Until then, peace, love, and good night. Wherever you are, good afternoon or morning around the world. Stay tuned. I am Kat. This is Buckets and Leon. Until then, peace out.
See ya.